Have you ever found yourself sitting alone in a quiet house, wondering when life became so still? Maybe you used to wake up to the sound of your children running down the hallway, or the phone ringing off the hook with their questions and updates. But now, the house is calm. The phone doesn't ring as much. The days feel longer, and sometimes you catch yourself thinking, when did everything change? I remember the exact day it hit me. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I had made a big lunch, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the whole spread. I expected the kids to come over like they used to, but one had work, another was traveling, and the youngest had plans with friends. I sat at the table alone, staring at the empty chairs, and I realized something I should have known all along. My children have their own lives. At first, I felt that sting, the kind that comes when you realize you're not the center of their world anymore. For so many years, being a parent had been my whole identity. Every decision I made, every dollar I saved, every prayer I whispered, it was all for them. So when the house grew quiet, I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt like I had been left behind. But as time went on, something inside me began to shift. I started to see that my children having their own lives wasn't a sign that they'd forgotten me, it was proof that I'd done my job well. I had raised independent adults who could stand on their own 2 feet. Isn't that what every parent hopes for? It just took me a while to see it that way. It's funny how we spend decades teaching our kids how to live, how to tie their shoes, how to treat people kindly, how to face the world, and then one day, they go out and do exactly that. And yet, when they do, it feels like a little piece of us goes missing. But I've learned that peace doesn't disappear. It just settles into a new place inside us, one that's quieter, but still full of love. The truth is, when your children grow up and build their own lives, it's not the end of your story. It's the start of a new chapter. One that's about you, your peace, your growth, and your rediscovery of who you are outside of being someone's mom or dad. For years, I put everyone else first, and it became second nature. But now, I'm learning what it means to put myself on that list, too. It started with the smallest things. One morning, instead of waiting for someone to call, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat outside just to listen to the birds. I noticed the smell of the grass, the way the sunlight hit the trees, and for the first time in a while, I felt calm, not lonely, just calm. Then I began to pick up hobbies I'd long forgotten. I dusted off my old sewing machine, I started walking in the evenings, I even joined a local reading group at the library. Suddenly, I wasn't filling my time, I was living it. You see, as parents, we often forget that we're more than caregivers. We're individuals with dreams, interests, and stories that still matter. When we finally let our children live their lives, it opens the door for us to rediscover ours. That realization changed everything for me. And once I started to accept that my children didn't need me in the same way anymore, I began to see how beautiful that actually was. I saw them making decisions, creating homes, raising their own families, and even facing challenges without running to me for every answer. It made me proud in a deeper, quieter way. It meant they were standing strong because of the foundation I helped build. But I'll be honest, letting go wasn't easy. There were moments when I'd feel that ache in my chest, missing their voices, their laughter, the chaos of family dinners. Sometimes I'd look at old photos and feel tears well up. I had to remind myself that love doesn't disappear when distance grows. It just changes shape. The love I have for my children now lives in phone calls and small visits and knowing they're okay, even when they're not right beside me. One of the biggest lessons I've learned through this season of life is that peace doesn't come from holding on tighter. It comes from learning to release with love. When we hold on too tightly, we end up carrying worry, disappointment, and expectations that only weigh us down. But when we let go with grace, we make space for peace, space for joy, and space for new experiences that belong to us. And something wonderful happens when you stop waiting for your children to fill your days. You start to see how full your life still is. You begin to notice the people and opportunities around you, friends who check in, neighbors who wave, hobbies that make you smile. You realize you're still growing, still capable, still needed, maybe not in the same way as before, but in a way that's just as meaningful. I think a lot of us, especially at this age, wrestle with the question of purpose. We ask ourselves, who am I now that my kids are grown? But maybe the answer is simpler than we think. Maybe this is the season to nurture ourselves, to care for our minds, our health, and our peace with the same love we once gave everyone else. It's a strange feeling, finding yourself again after years of being defined by others. But it's also incredibly freeing. It doesn't mean you stop loving your children, far from it. It just means you start loving yourself, too. Now that I've shared how I began to see my children's independence in a new light, let's talk about how that realization helped me truly find peace, not just with them, but within myself. Watching and feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. After that Sunday when I sat alone at the table, I decided that instead of feeling sorry for myself, I was going to start living again, not waiting for anyone to fill my days, but learning how to fill them myself. It wasn't about replacing my children or pretending I didn't miss them. It was about finally giving myself permission to exist outside of being mom. The first thing I had to learn was to stop expecting things to be the way they used to be. That was hard. For so many years, weekends meant noise and laughter and a house full of people. Now, weekends are quiet. But quiet doesn't have to mean lonely, it can mean peaceful, if you let it. I began to treat silence as something comforting rather than sad. I'd put on some soft music, open the windows, and let the day unfold however it wanted to. No schedules, no expectations. Just me being present. One morning, as I was making tea, I realized that I'd spent most of my adult life taking care of everyone else but rarely stopping to ask myself what I truly wanted. I had always been needed. And while that was beautiful, it also meant I never learned how to simply be, to do things just because they made me happy. So, I made a list of small joys. Things that didn't depend on anyone else. Reading a book on the porch. Taking a walk after dinner. Watching old movies. Calling a friend just to laugh. It wasn't about staying busy, it was about feeling alive again. Something changes inside you when you stop measuring your days by who calls or visits. You begin to find joy in the moments you once overlooked. I started noticing the way the sky looked different every evening. I began chatting more with my neighbors. I planted flowers in the garden, not for anyone else, just for me. And you know what? Those little acts started to heal something in me. I used to think peace was something you had to search for, but now I see that it's something you allow. It's what fills your heart when you stop clinging to how things should be and start appreciating how they are. Once I made that shift, even the quiet moments felt full. Of course, there were still days when my heart ached a little. When I'd scroll through photos of the kids and wish they were still small enough to curl up beside me on the couch. But then I'd remember that their happiness, their independence, their full lives, that's the result of all those years I poured my love into them. That realization brought me a sense of pride and comfort I can't quite put into words. I also learned that finding peace didn't mean cutting myself off from my children. It meant changing the way I loved them. I stopped waiting for them to call first. I stopped feeling hurt if days went by without hearing from them. Instead, I started sending them messages just to say, I love you, I'm proud of you, without expecting a reply right away. I started giving them the same grace I hoped they'd give me one day when their own children grow up. Love doesn't need constant proof to be real, sometimes it just needs space to breathe. And something amazing happened once I released those old expectations. My relationship with my kids actually got better. Our conversations became lighter, more genuine. They started calling more often, not because they felt guilty, but because they wanted to. I think they could sense that I wasn't clinging anymore. I wasn't trying to hold them back. I was simply there, loving them quietly, supporting them from afar, and living my own life. There's a certain beauty in realizing that love doesn't fade when you let go, it deepens. It transforms into something steady, something peaceful. I don't need to see my children every week to know they love me. I can feel it in the way they still share their big moments with me, or ask for advice now and then, or tell me they miss my cooking. It's love that's grown up, just like they have. And while they're out there building their worlds, I've started building mine, too. I joined a community group at the senior center, just a few of us who meet for coffee and talk about books, movies, and life. I've made new friends, and we share stories about our families, our joys, our aches. There's something comforting about being around people who understand what this season of life feels like. It reminds me that even though my children are busy living their own lives, I still belong to something, to a community, to a world that still has space for me. Little by little, I've learned that peace doesn't come from getting everything you want, it comes from appreciating what you have. My house may not be full of noise anymore, but it's full of memories. My days may not revolve around my children's schedules, but they're still full of meaning. I've discovered that fulfillment isn't about being needed, it's about being content. And something else happened along the way. I started to feel proud of myself. Not just as a parent, but as a person. For surviving the hard days, for adapting, for learning to let go with grace. I used to think my story was winding down, but now I realize it's still unfolding, just in a quieter, gentler way. Now, when I see my children living their lives, raising their own families, traveling, working hard, I smile, not with sadness, but with peace. Because I see myself in them. All those lessons I taught them, all the love I gave, it's still there, living on through them. And that means I'm still part of their lives, even if it looks different now. It's a kind of peace that takes time to find, but once you do, it feels like coming home to yourself. It's that deep exhale after years of holding your breath, realizing you don't have to chase, control, or hold on. You can simply love, and that's enough. Now that I've found that balance between loving my children and loving my own life, I've discovered something even more powerful, that this stage of life isn't about losing anything at all. It's about gaining something deeper, freedom, peace, and self-discovery. There came a morning not long ago when I woke up, made my tea, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, complete peace. It wasn't the kind that comes from everything going perfectly, or from hearing good news from my children. It was quieter than that, softer. It was the kind of peace that comes when you finally stop fighting against what is, and start embracing it. I sat by the window, watching the light pour into the room, and I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. Not waiting for the phone to ring. Not waiting for someone to visit. Not waiting for life to feel full again. Because it already was, in its own way. I had simply been too focused on the past to see it. That morning, I looked around my home, the same house that used to be filled with toys, noise, and endless chatter, and I saw beauty in the quiet. Every corner held memories. Every photo on the wall told a story of love that had grown, changed, and matured. My life hadn't become empty, it had just evolved. When my children were young, my world revolved around theirs. Now, their worlds are bigger, and that's how it's supposed to be. The greatest gift a parent can give is the freedom for their children to live fully. And the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the permission to do the same. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that once the kids are grown, our best days are behind us. But I've come to believe the opposite. This stage of life, this chapter, can be one of the richest if we let it. Because now, we have something we didn't before, time, perspective, and the chance to truly live for ourselves. I started asking myself a simple question each morning: what can I do today that brings me peace? Sometimes the answer was as simple as sitting in the garden. Other times, it meant calling a friend or trying something new, like a painting class or volunteering at the local food bank. Each little choice added up to a life that felt full again, but full in a different way, full of calm instead of chaos, full of meaning instead of noise. The more I leaned into that mindset, the more I realized how much of my life had been spent giving. Giving time, energy, love, and care to others. That's a beautiful thing, but now, it's my turn to give some of that love back to myself. We often think self-care is selfish, but it's really just self-respect. It's saying, my happiness matters too. And what's interesting is, once I started taking better care of myself, emotionally, physically, spiritually, my relationship with my children grew even stronger. Because they could see I was happy. They didn't feel guilty for living their lives. They didn't feel pressured to call every day or visit constantly. They knew I was okay, not just okay, but genuinely content. And that kind of peace spreads. When your children see you at peace, it gives them permission to live freely too. I've also learned that love doesn't shrink with distance, it stretches. It reaches across miles, across busy schedules, across silence. Just because we don't talk every day doesn't mean we're not connected. Love has a way of existing quietly, in the background, steady and unwavering. It's in the moments when they think of me and smile. It's in the recipes they still cook because they remind them of home. It's in the lessons they carry into their own parenting. So if you're watching this right now, maybe sitting in your own quiet house, wondering where everyone went, I want you to know, you haven't been left behind. Life hasn't forgotten you. It's simply inviting you into a new chapter. One where your peace matters. One where your happiness no longer depends on anyone else's presence or approval. One where you can finally breathe, reflect, and rediscover yourself. Maybe your children call less often than you'd like. Maybe the house feels too still sometimes. That's okay. Feel the sadness when it comes, don't fight it, but also look for the beauty hiding underneath it. The stillness can be healing. It's a reminder that you've earned this rest, this calm. You've spent years giving your all, and now you have the right to simply be. And here's the wonderful thing, when you stop trying to hold on so tightly, the love flows more naturally. The relationships you have with your children start to feel lighter, more joyful. You'll laugh more when you do talk. You'll cherish the moments you spend together instead of wishing they lasted longer. Because peace teaches you that it's not about how much time you have, but how fully you live it. I've also started thinking a lot about legacy, not the kind written on paper, but the kind written in hearts. The truth is, my children don't need me to guide their every step anymore, but the love and values I gave them are still with them every day. That's my legacy. It lives on through the kindness they show others, through the patience they've learned, through the way they care for their own families. And knowing that brings me peace unlike anything else. So now, when I think of them, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, I smile. I whisper a quiet blessing for them, then I go back to my own day. Because I've learned that letting go isn't losing, it's trusting. Trusting that the love you built is strong enough to last, no matter the distance. And maybe that's what real peace is, not needing to hold on so tightly anymore. Knowing you've loved well, given enough, and can finally rest in the knowledge that everyone is exactly where they're meant to be. If you're in that season of life, I want you to take a deep breath and remind yourself, your story isn't over just because your children have grown. You are still here, still needed, still capable of joy, laughter, and love. You can still learn, dream, and make memories. You can still find new purpose, not by going back, but by going forward with grace. So take this time to love yourself, to rediscover what makes you happy. Let your children live their lives, and live yours, too. Because peace isn't something you find by clinging to the past. It's something you build, moment by moment, when you accept the present with an open heart. If this message touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your story, how you've learned to find peace as your children built their own lives. Your words might comfort someone else who's on the same journey. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories like this, stories about love, growth, and the beauty of life after 60. Remember, peace doesn't mean the absence of people or noise. It means the presence of love, gratitude, and acceptance. You've earned it. You deserve it. And it's never too late to live your life fully, freely, and peacefully. Here's to finding peace in every stage of life, and to loving without holding on too tightly.